Welcome to Broadcast Astrology, Insight for Humans.
This is Lisa Pesnichek.
And I'm Sarah Beckner, and we're here to deep dive into the fascinating world of astrology.
We offer blind chart readings, interviews with notable guests, and much more.
So keep listening as we bring you Insight for Humans. We are back. Welcome to Broadcast Astrology. Lisa and I are so excited to have Mary Beth LaRue with us today. She is a seasoned yoga and embodiment teacher and a somatic practitioner. And we really wanted to pull her into the conversation today because, as we know, the astrological times suggest that we could use some medicine, some care to help us navigate some of the quickening of this year, the frenetic energy of the times. So I'm just going to turn it over to you, Mary Beth. Tell us a little bit about your experience, what you do, and how you work with your clients.
I'm honored to be here, so thanks for having me. Mary Beth or MB, whatever you feel most comfortable calling me. And I've been teaching yoga for a little over 20 years, and I would say it is now morphed into a very slow flow practice. I love being in my body, and it is most certainly not the first place I go. It is here, being in my head. So helping my students through slow flow yoga, breath work, embodiment practices, and now somatic work. So I'm a somatic practitioner and I work with clients in a variety of ways. I teach virtually, which I actually love. It protects my introvert energy and I still feel very connected to people. And then I work one-on-one. I have group programs called the Embodied Return, which is a somatic program that's 6 weeks. I lead retreats to Mexico, my favorite place ever, Sayulita, Mexico. I've led probably 12 retreats there at this point, maybe more. And yeah, I think for me, connection, soulfulness, and embodiment are the values that I live by, that within my family as a mother, in my community, and then in my work are just my guiding forces.
Beautiful. Yeah, I know Mary Beth because we both teach at the same studio up here in Evergreen, Colorado. And her classes are incredible. If you ever get a chance online or wherever else to take a class with her, I definitely suggest that. And she came to mind as far as somebody who could really speak to this time, even though she doesn't have an astrology background. I know that there's something in the astrology that Sarah and I have been speaking to over the past however many months, whenever we're speaking about the current astrology, which is very quickened, it's fast, it's this roaring river of change, bringing in a new future as we separate from a past that we've largely clung to as the way that things should be. And so the base of all that, we're in this moment of change and something that Sarah and I keep coming back to. And me being a yoga teacher as well, and I know that yoga and body work is something that Sarah does as well, is how important it is to tap into the wisdom in our bodies and that we tend to get caught in our minds, but that there's so much wisdom and insight that we often bypass through the mind that is crucial to this time where the mind could be moving a million miles an hour as so much is changing. But in order to connect with people in a way where we're seeing one another as the magical humans that we are, regardless of where each of us stand in our lives, politically or whatever else, that there's still magic and there's still importance within each and every one of us. And I think the first step to being in that place of curiosity, of compassion, is to be in our bodies. And so that's why we invited Mary Beth here today. And for those of you who are astrology knowledgeable, I will quickly speak to what we're looking at. First of all is Saturn Neptune on the Aries point. They met up in mid-February, basically dissolving the structures that we've known, and also a quickening with a small grand trine between Uranus in Gemini, Pluto in Aquarius, and Neptune in Aries. So that's really kind of the astrological piece that we're speaking to, and probably the only time we'll really name it. But I just wanted to put that out there. So Here we are.
Right before we started this call, we just sat and we took a collective breath together. And it just reminded me how bizarre it is that I just lose myself all day, and I don't know,
Ugh.
Mary Beth, if you want to speak to what that is, that part of us that forgets and is called to remember and forgets and is called to remember. Like, how do we stay tethered to the body, and what is the purpose and function all about all of that? Why do we become these walking, talking heads?
Mm. That's so funny because even as you were talking, I was picturing wearing an astronaut helmet of like how I get so stuck up here. And sometimes I'll go to teach and I'm like, oh, I'm in a body. Oh God, it feels so good to be in a body. And even when it doesn't, right, it still feels better than being stuck here in my head. And I find too, a couple of different things. One, we're human, right? There's so much coming at us all the time. I was just posting something on Instagram and got sucked into some sad piece of news that I watched. And I watched my whole body grieve what I just saw, even though I wasn't there, right? Feeling so activated, so sad. I can feel it behind my eyes, so sad. And how could we not be dysregulated? How could we not be in a dissociative state on and off all day? That's protection, right? Our nervous system is like, too much, too much, too much. And so to me, it's this titration of returning. And I think that's where ritual and routine can be really beautiful. And sometimes I think of that as leaving myself breadcrumbs all day. But remember your way back as you go out there in the world. Remember how to get home, right? And even as we took that breath together and I found my selenite and I remembered I had a warm cacao here to resource with. And it was like, oh, I wasn't here in this clip I just watched. I'm here in my body and I can hold that I felt things and I'm feeling compassion and I'm feeling sadness. And I'm actually here in this chair making eye contact with the two of you. And so I think that return, and we might lose it there for a while, right? There's times when I get sucked in and I notice myself shutting down and getting really judgmental. That's usually a sign for me that I am not in my body, that I'm here. My body's not going to push you away unless it needs to, unless I need to protect myself. But my brain is constantly scanning and thinking, what's safe? What's not safe? Right? It doesn't know the difference of seeing this and wondering if I'm there or not. And to me, that has been such a massive shift of like, even this morning, I had a doctor's appointment and I put a book in my bag. I'm like, I don't want to pick up my phone. And as I looked around the waiting room, everyone was on their phone. And I was like, how strange that it's weird to be the person with the book now. So noticing those things of what's going to trigger, what might send me into a spiral, and can I be in a space of being with myself before I make the choice to do so. I think that's something, remembering choice has been helpful for me as well.
I wonder, just listening to you speak about tuning into that news and its effect on you, I often wonder with myself how much to stay attuned to the collective and whether we humans are supposed to be processing some of that grief. And maybe the goal is not to be in perfect equanimity all the time, but how do you decide how much to try to stay in a place of comfort, I guess, because that's what I would associate with the safety versus allow yourself to participate and be in this
Mhm,
experience and use the body maybe as a means of metabolizing some of what we are doing
mhm,
here collectively on the planet.
mhm.
Yeah.
And,
I mean,
oh, sorry, go ahead.
no, you go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say a couple of things there. Am I participating or am I addicted?
Mhm.
Mm.
Right? Like, am I participating or am I reaching for this because God forbid I stay in my own experience? Right? If I can be in a space of, okay, now let's look. Let's see what I can do instead of this constant stream. And then having the tools to notice the experience in the body instead of what I would often do before, which is reach outside of myself for something so I didn't have to sit with how I was feeling.
Mm.
Right. So, what are some ways to discharge that?
And I feel like the work that you're doing, Mary Beth in particular, is so important at this time because the world has never been more connected than it is now. And we've never, as humans, we don't know how to regulate that space for ourselves. We don't have tools. I think we're still figuring out what those tools are because we're still figuring out what tools we need and how it's actually affecting us. And it's encouraging us to tune into ourselves in a way that we haven't had to before, which I think can actually be a really powerful thing and might even be part of the point, like from a larger perspective as far as what we're doing. 'Cause I don't foresee a time when we're going to become less connected globally. I really see that just increasing more than decreasing. And the other thought I had too is that we're all parents, we all have kids, and how we are the first generation of parents who have had to raise kids with screens. None of us have had that experience before. And we don't really know how that's affecting our kids in the long term. And I think that the work you're doing is so important. I believe that our kids' generation is going to understand how to work with that in a way that we don't understand.
Totally. I mean, wow. I remember like, I'll be 43 in a few weeks. And it's like getting that AOL CD in the mail where I would put America Online in my parents' computer, Gateway 2000, and a chat room would pop up. And it's like, oh, here's this little girl from farm town in Iowa who's now connected with this world, which was very exciting. I don't remember feeling like, ah, right. But it is wild, wild. And I have a tendency to be like, it was better when, but that's not helpful.
Mhm.
We are not in the when. We are in the now. We are not going back.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah. It's an interesting time to be alive, for sure. And
Yes.
and just remembering too when the overwhelm comes that we were all born to be in this time. We were all born to navigate this and bring our gifts forward and help one another out.
Mm, that is one of my favorite things to come back to. And I haven't for a long time as you chose this.
Yeah. So one of the
Feels
things
so good in my body.
yeah, yeah. I think it's really powerful. But one of the things we wanted to ask you is as somebody who doesn't know astrology, so we're all in our heads in astrology, right? But as somebody who has been doing this work for 20 years and is also in this pivotal point that we're in now, still working with clients and people, has there been a shift recently that we don't have to put a timeline on it, but what have you noticed as far as your own body, your own practice, as well as that of your clients, your students?
Absolutely a shift. Personally and with my community, I see that the old ways don't work anymore, period. The old patterns, the old habits, the old thinking, none of it holds up. And so I think what I've seen is a lot of fear of grasping, but it's changing. Even as I just spoke about the AOL CD, right? But that over and over and over again of fighting what's happening. I've seen it myself, I see it in people. Where I've seen it harnessed in a really beautiful way is moving into this identity shift of how can I be embodied and move through a time that feels to me a little bit like sticking my finger in a light socket is what it's felt like personally. So I've seen a lot of identity shift for those who are willing, a lot of return to the body. I see the same people show up virtually in my membership every single class. Like it's co regulation. Even if someone's in Guam and someone's in California and someone's here in Colorado, we are together. And that I'm seeing people really needing, whether that is in virtual spaces and in person, this desire for community. And I think trying to go back to old ways over and over again until it's like, I can't. Right. And myself, I've been sober for, let's see, a little over a year. And that has been super, that was that same vein of this doesn't work anymore. These ways don't work. This isn't going to work, period. And what I was seeing in myself was a very strong desire to feel free. And then watching myself continually, whether it was thinking, drinking, whatever it was, all these different ways that I would keep myself small and the opposite of free, absolutely imprisoned. So I've seen that not only in myself, but in countless others.
You, I know you don't realize it, but you're speaking all the astrology keywords. I mean, you're really
No.
speaking and we have Pluto in Aquarius, which is a new thing for us, for the world in our lifetime. And that idea of co-regulation across boundaries, across space and time is a really cool thing, a really positive manifestation of this kind of energy that's emerging. But at the same time, I mean, when you mentioned the kids, Lisa, I just thought you can't deny that we have a major mental health crisis going on
Mhm.
among the young people. And how are we going to get this to them? How are we going to give them the skills and the tools to co-regulate? I mean, they're doing it right now in the most kind of destructive ways, I think, in terms of the online forum.
Agreed.
And I had a client this morning who was telling me that she had read something about France and one other country banning social media. I haven't looked it up yet, but I thought, how are they even doing that? I can't even conceive of it because as it exists right now, it's so difficult to put any kind of restraints on the technology because it's so embedded now in our systems. I mean, you need it for school, you need it to communicate in every way. So there is no going back, there's no avoidance. And I'm hoping before our time is over today, Mary Beth, that you give us some practical tools for ourselves, for our own bodies, and how to work with the people we love, and maybe how to open up and introduce our children to so that they understand what's going on. Because
Mhm.
I do think this stuff, it's almost as if it's a felt sensation for me in the body, and then the mind comes in with the stories and the narrative and all. It feels to me that the body is the antenna and the source that's just picking up on everything that's going on. And then I can just go straight to the mental body and explain things away and never really sit with anything long enough to watch it become something else.
Mm.
So yeah, I don't know if there's things you could give us in terms of self practice or how you
Oh,
see it,
yeah.
how you look at it, how you integrate it in your own life.
Yeah, for sure. I think what I love about somatics in general, embodiment work and somatics in general, is that it's simple. Right? We overcomplicate everything. I remember when I first found somatics and was deeply grieving a traumatic loss, and I would try to look it up, but my mind wanted to understand, well, what's dorsal? What's this? What is being in fight or flight? It was like, no, be in your body. And so kids are naturally very somatically attuned. I think it's something we just lose as we become more cerebral, as we are staring at a screen all the time, and bringing it back to the basics and then having our children witness us and maybe ask, why do you do that? Or can you help me? Right? Can you help me scan? First thing I would say is orienting. This practice is so profound and so simple. And that's just being here, taking a moment, and we can all do it, is just being in your chair or wherever you're at. And then just moving your head and looking at where you are. Not even from a space of needing to name, but noticing perhaps color, light. I like to encourage people to move their whole torso and look around. And then letting your gaze pause on something that feels pleasant, or if pleasant isn't accessible, neutral. So there's a Gabor Mate book over here on next to the bed, and it has the Scattered Minds book, and it has this tie-dye looking paint explosion on the cover. And the hot pink in the middle just feels so pleasant to me right now. I don't need to make it mean anything. And as I look at it, I can settle into my seat a little more. And feel into my chest. I can notice my heart beating, my breath slowing down. And then I can decide if that book during this conversation is a resource for me. So if I start to lose myself or I stop being here, I could look to the right. I could bring it closer if I want. I could put it right here on the desk. So it's so simple. Then my son was going into play therapy the other day and he was feeling anxiety, and we're in Conifer. And so we sat outside and we just oriented the mountains with the trees. And I just had him pause. He saw one tree in particular, and it just drops us back into the present and into our bodies. And what I like too is it feels enjoyable to me. I'm not trying to figure anything out. I don't even need to know what I feel. It's just here. And so that can be a resource as well. So you could choose something like in the winter, often, like I'll picture this one stone in the river down in Evergreen. And I go there all summer and lay on this flat rock. And I picture it when I'm feeling triggered or when I'm feeling dysregulated. And I picture the warmth of this flat rock and how I'll dip my hair back into the cold river and I'll put my feet in and my hands. And it really brings me back into my body. So those are just a couple of ways. This could be done in 10 seconds, right? Sometimes I find it so enjoyable. I end up looking around my space or out the windows, a space I'm in so often, but just really being here. And I find teaching children how to do that as well, noticing in their bodies, maybe it's a hand on the heart that feels helpful. Another one I love is to do a head hold, and you just bring your hand to the back of your neck and cradle your occiput, and you really press in. I'm sure you've done this before. And then you bring your other hand to your forehead and just press in. My hands are really cold and it feels glorious. My hot head. And then you can just switch your hands, right? I have my son do this a lot too. And for me, this feels like cradling and supporting my brain, right? It's like you're held. There's containment here, right? So that one can be really nice. And these are all tools. So maybe it leads you into organically placing your hands somewhere or running your hands on your thighs. Like, oh, I'm here. I find the intuitive, organic stuff that comes through can feel so nice. Even with tapping, I always forget the key to how you're supposed to EFT it up, what I'm supposed to be doing. And I'll just find myself just tapping away anywhere I want. And so some of these tools to just remember that you're in your body, it can be helpful as well. Yeah, like this, Sarah. Like, right? I worked with an energy worker once and she was like, I need you to take your hands across your heart like this a lot during this season. Your heart's getting really closed off. And I was like, what? And then I started doing it. And I was doing it in weird, I'd be in the coffee shop line and be like, my heart open before I get my Americano. And embodiment can look weird. Embodiment should, because it's your expression. The weirder I get in it, like I was taking a movement class the other day and my son was sitting watching me, and I was just letting loose. It felt glorious. And he goes, Mommy, whoa, like, whoa. And I thought, yes, good, good. I want an 8-year-old I want him to see this,
Mhm.
you know, not this. And he'll tell me, he goes, Mommy, your face changes when you look at your phone.
Ooh.
Right? I
Yeah.
teared up when he told me that. Your face
What a
changes.
wise kid.
He is very wise. Yeah.
Mhm. I love those exercises because they're so accessible. And especially the one with your hands on your head, it was reminding you that the head isn't just a bunch of thoughts, that there's a physical part to it there too. Because sometimes it can feel like a balloon, and a reminder that that's part of the rest of the body too
Mhm.
is
Yeah, and it's such a
really good.
beautiful and it's a creative tool. I love creativity. That's
Mm.
part of my lifeline, and when I'm seeing my Virgo brain go blah, 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 just absolutely trying to figure everything out, it's this return of look at all the beautiful things your mind does, but you got to be in your body first.
Right, right. And so so are these things that you found, I mean, obviously, I'm just trying to bridge between the quickening of this time and
Mm.
the potential fear of this time and these exercises. And obviously, we know how they can help and why we're bringing them up. But if there's anything else as far as your experience or your students' experience or that sort of thing that you've seen that that has helped people at this time to get through all of the intensity and the furious pace of life right now.
Mhm. Sarah, wasn't it? Didn't you say at the beginning as the body is medicine or something along those lines?
Somehow it feels like the remedy is hidden with
Yeah. Mhm.
corporeal
Yeah.
body. Yes. Yeah.
Mhm. And I think too, not think, I know, I feel that that
Mhm.
is absolutely the way. And when we're used to bypassing the body because we've had to, maybe from traumatic experiences, from just living in this world, we've come to not trust. And so it feels easier to speed up and push down or push through. And when I go into that runaway train mode and I see that in students and clients, I'll get on with a client and they're talking a million miles a minute. That's being in fight or flight. And so that return of let's just pause, let's slow it down. That's something I say all the time to myself too. Let's go back to this piece. Would it be doable for you to sit with that moment right before you stepped in the door and whatever it was unfolded from the story? And then we break it down and we just pause and we're in that moment and noticing what the body holds. I know my body's holding something from what I saw earlier. And when we complete here, I'm going to take some time with that and to sit instead of pushing through because I notice it doesn't serve anymore. It's going to be there to deal with either now or I'm going to deal with it later, probably in an outburst or shutting down, feeling sick. And people don't want to slow down. It's really uncomfortable.
Well,
But
to hear you talk about slowing down, just remind like the minute you even say the word, it creates more space. And I think people, because everything is going like a runaway train out there, part of that frenetic thing of I gotta speak it, I gotta share it is just people not feeling there is the space to be, that if they don't get it out, nobody is gonna slow down and there's no deep listening anymore.
and there isn't. You're just trying to grab 5 seconds of someone's time, and that's why I love this work. 5 seconds doesn't cut it. Sure, maybe here, when we took our breath together, I felt that,
Mhm.
but I just finished the Tao of Pooh. I've never read it, and I loved it. And one of the main takeaways was, for me, was this idea of we're trying to be so clever. We're trying to figure it all out. And here's Pooh Bear with his honey pot and just listening to the birds. And this return to being a little more like Pooh, which to me is the essence of somatics, of being here. I'm never going to think my way to an embodied space. I have to feel my way there. And my brain will do beautiful things and very hard things that I have to deal with. But my body can be an instrument if I learn to work with it to start to attune me to what is here.
I don't know if you have a philosophical or spiritual orientation that is a framework that holds all of this, but I remember in my early 20s studying the work of G.I. Gurdjieff. He was a Russian mystic, and it was the first time in my life I connected with the idea of the witness. Because who is doing this? Who is guiding us back to this experience? Who is the witness that's coming in with some curiosity about that? And so I started early on in my client practice just trying to make sure that at least 10% of my consciousness was in my body when I was with another human being. Like, feel my
Mm.
feet, feel my hands while I'm listening or while I'm talking to somebody. But now there seems to be so much more language and all of the work of Gabor Mate, all of these people who are bringing forth these ideas and getting us back into our bodies. It's just sort of interesting. I don't know if you have a more philosophical orientation to it. Like, who's running this show? Can you get to a place where you can truly be in that place of regulation and equanimity within your body the majority of your life? Can you get to a place where you train yourself to move through with that level of ease, regardless of what's happening in the external world? Do you see people
And
grow that way as you work with them, where they start that witness starts to become a more dominant force in their lives?
yeah, I think it will always be a dance if you're very much on the human plane. And I am very much on the human plane. I am not Eckhart Tolle. And I think he is on a different plane. I was just reading Abraham Hicks, which I've been enjoying dancing with a little bit. And it's such a different experience. And I think you start to crave being in this state more than in the dysregulated state. However, that shows up. I know somatics, dysregulation, all this is being thrown around like nonstop. But to find the work and then find the language that resonates for you. Like for me, the work of, anytime I would have an experience of reading something or hearing someone, I love Mark Nepo, his poetry, and he's been hugely impactful for me. I don't know much about him. I just know how he makes me feel and how I feel seen in a way, or there's a part of my soul for whatever reason that connects with his, or different teachers who have been along the path who have opened a new door for me or a window or cracked something just a little bit so I could see something new or a different perspective. And like I said before, I know now that my old ways don't work. And that's because of this time that I'm spending in a state that feels like home and feels like deep, deep, deep care for myself. So that then I can go have that care go to my son, to my community, to my students, to my husband, whoever, my friends. And I kind of lost my train of thought there. But
I'm wondering if there are some people for whom it's very difficult to feel safe in their body. You know, what about, do you work with people with chronic pain or conditions that where there's more resistance to finding a sense of home in the body, like you described?
oh, yes. And I'm sure there will be plenty of people hearing this and feel wildly triggered by it because all our paths all look so different. And with someone who is dealing with major PTSD, high chronic pain, whatever it might be, you're taking these titrated little pieces to work with. We build a little bit of space, a little bit of understanding. Then perhaps we touch the edge of something that feels hard. Oh, too much. We pull back, right? So we're not overwhelming the system so that we're going back into shutdown. We're into major fight or flight. We want to find the space where we're moving through fight or flight, shutdown, feeling regulated all day, up and down, up and down, up and down. That is natural. That is a healthy nervous system. It's when we're getting stuck, when we're not able to get out of bed, when we're not able to have our phone face down for 2 hours while we're writing or 20 minutes. whatever it is. So finding just a little bit of what's tolerable, and then maybe we expand it this much, right? A little bit more. And then eventually you're building capacity, and capacity is the goal. It's not to feel regulated all the time. It's not to feel good all the time. That is full on bypassing. It's to build capacity to stay with what is. And that to me has been the biggest gift. Life is not going to stop throwing stuff at us, and you two are telling us what's coming. So building that capacity is essential.
Something that I keep thinking of is the importance of remembering that it's a practice.
Oof.
There's a long Saturn to this. There's like this long-term, step-by-step, just continually returning to it and not trying to make it perfect each time as well. And that's something that practicing yoga almost daily for so many years has really brought me back to, which is every day you step on the mat, it's just another practice. And there's this cumulative Saturnian effect after days and hours and years and decades. You look back on it and you understand what that actually means for you and how it's changed your life. And I know for myself, I would absolutely not be the same person if it weren't for yoga. And I finally, after 20 plus years of practicing and teaching, pulled out the Yoga Sutras, which I had never really dove into. And it has meant so much to me as far as after having that long practice. And I think that the same sort of approach to what you're speaking to too with these practices, any practice that you bring into your life. It's just that there's no perfection to it. It's just, it's rewiring the brain. It's learning how to go from 100% exhilaration or effort or whatever that is, and understanding how to get back to that place of 100% relaxation and understanding that it's always available to you, no matter what, no matter how dysregulated you begin, that there's always that path back, and practicing that over and over and over again. That's part of being alive in this human body. And especially, like we were saying, when we can be so connected to the news, but also to one another, regardless of location. And
Mhm.
I think it's more important now than maybe it's ever been, or maybe it just has a different context to sit within that we're exploring than when, say, the Yoga Sutras were written. And it's still applicable to us as practitioners of whatever we're practicing in the mindfulness realm. But there's things that they couldn't have even known about when it was written.
Mhm. No, for sure. Listening to elders, right? Lately,
Yeah.
I'm feeling this tenderness around aging and how I want to embrace it. And I
Mm.
want people to see it on me and feel it on me, in me. And what can be handed down that AI could never replicate. Same with these practices is you could learn so much, sure, but you can never co-regulate with AI. You can never
Yeah.
have that feeling. Even now, just how I told you I felt when we started this conversation and how I feel now is completely different, completely different. It's returning me to myself in a way that was not accessible 48 minutes ago. And that can't come from technology. We have to return to each other. And, but first, I have to return to myself before I'm available to you. And
Mhm.
so I think that's why these practices are so important, however they show up. It doesn't have to be a seated somatic practice. It doesn't have to be any type of yoga. It's how you return. And I always encourage people, what brings you home to yourself? And let yourself enjoy being here when possible.
Mhm.
That was so beautifully articulated. And I think that's the crux of the whole thing because even when I think about what everybody's grappling with in terms of mental health, a lot of that is a sense of overwhelm, isolation, despair, feeling hopeless or not at capacity to make change or to push something out into the world in a way that is meaningful or improves things. But that is on the most simple level what we have at our disposal all the time is that when we're truly available to ourselves and our own experience and to one another, that's where the magic happens. That is the core of our humanness. And if we're too caught up in the mental body, we don't get to make real connections, have real intimacy, or reap the benefits and rewards of human engagement and interaction. In a way, that's what we are supposed to be doing for each other.
Yeah, I just read something that was like every person you have in your life is showing you a different version of you, right? As much as that can be hard when we feel misinterpreted or seen in different ways, you get this cool way to dance with someone else's energy of, oh, that's how you interpreted that. So interesting. Or thank you for showing me this perspective or whatever it might be. My 8-year-old, I mean, my biggest teacher of like, now would be a good time to cover blueberries in milk chocolate and put it in the freezer as we're rushing out the door, and they need to be lined up in perfect little rows because that's the vision he had. And I'm like, great, that is great. I should do that. Licking milk chocolate off my fingers and cramming it into the freezer. And I love that because his brain is so fruitful and interesting and full and still so here. And so I love being like, show me what's next.
Mhm.
Where are we going? Show me what's next because I need that return.
Yeah, to your
Beautiful.
little self, to little Mary Beth
Oh,
that needed to
yes.
play, like needed to get off the
Yes.
schedule.
Totally. Oh,
All right. Well, is there anything else as we close up, Mary Beth, as far as anything else you'd like to say or final words?
a couple of things I just touched on. There's no right or wrong way to do this. I think that's what prevents so many of us getting started and following your intuition. That's what I felt coming back online for me is an intuitive sense of, nope, go this way. Nope, pivot this way. And knowing that that is still there. And maybe we've just stopped listening to it. Perhaps we're outsourcing our inner knowing and we're looking to Instagram for 5 tips, or we're reading 9, all my self help books here. They're all somatic books, but right here next to me, I don't need to look at those right now. I need to be quiet. I need to sit with myself. And then, sure, I'll crack one open. But just knowing that there is a beautiful path in front of you and it is yours to walk and it doesn't need to look like anyone else's. And I think that expression is so beautiful. And it's something that I am so honored to witness in others. And then my favorite definition of embodiment is deeply present for direct experience. And that for me is just this reminder of whatever's here. Whatever's here, that doesn't mean just good. It doesn't mean just deal with the hard stuff. It's all of it. And can I build capacity to dance with it and not get stuck? And that will be my work forever.
It's beautiful. I love how you're naming the astrology without even knowing it. As Sarah said,
I definitely don't know it.
it's incredible, which is part of why I thought it would be so fun to have you on because I knew you would. It's just something that's so resonant, but also for people who are tapped into the energetics of the collective. It's just obvious stuff at this point, and I knew you'd speak to it so eloquently. So thank you. And just one last thing, make sure, let everybody know where they can find you, anything you have coming up. It's a great time to plug yourself so people can reach out.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Yes. MaryBethLaRue.com. Mary Beth LaRue on Instagram. I do share pretty regularly. And I will have a group program starting in September, the Embodied Return. My one-on-ones will open in September and some new retreats that'll be shared soon. And then I have a virtual membership that's ongoing, 6 live classes a month. And there's like 500 plus recorded classes on there.
Thank you. Incredible.
Thank you.
Well,
I just met you today for the first time, but I feel like that conversation was a homecoming. It was a good reminder just to call me back into myself. So I hope everybody who's listening remembers, drop your shoulders and take a breath and come
Mhm.
home to yourselves.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, thanks everybody for
Thank you.
being here. Thanks for tuning in. We'll be back next month. Sarah and I are meeting up in person soon, the first week of September, for UAC, which is the largest astrology conference that happens only every couple years. So I'm excited about that. Looking forward to connecting with everybody next month. And thanks again, Mary Beth. And we'll see everybody next time.
Thanks for having me.
Of course. As always, thanks for listening to Broadcast Astrology, Insight for Humans. If you're so inclined, like, follow, and subscribe, and don't be a stranger.
Signing off for now. Until next time, humans, keep your gaze upwards on the stars and be well. We look forward to sharing more soon.